All right, we're going to talk to Joe Holmes, our final interview coming up in just a couple minutes. And I'm really looking forward to this. I've been playing you Joe's new band for a while now, and I'm going to give you a track, and then we'll come back and we'll talk live with Joe Holmes. The band is called FARMIKOS, just some slamming stuff, and this song is called Exit Stencils. Tell you what, doing what I do, it's extremely exciting when you get new music that you're just so into, and it just makes you feel like a kid again and that you love so much. And that is the case with that band when I first heard them. And I'm so excited this record's finally coming out. You know, I did a podcast where I mentioned my favorite records like at the halfway point of 2014, and I had FARMIKOS as number one. And then when I did my year-end list, I didn't put it on the list because I realized the record's not out yet. So you can't have a best, even though I had it, you can't have a best of 2014 with a record that wasn't released yet. So I got a good feeling for 2015 now with that record finally coming out. It'll still hang around long enough to make my final top 10 for this new year. It is just mind-blowingly great stuff. Again, the band is called FARMIKOS. I've been playing it for you guys for a long time now. And now, as I said, the record is finally coming out. And with that in mind, we go to the phones and welcome in the band's leader and guitarist, Joe Holmes. How are you, Joe?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Eddie.
Thank you so much for the time, man. And I'm so excited for this new band. I'm so glad you're finally ready to unveil it for the masses.
Oh, yeah. I appreciate everything you do for us, too. It cracks me up because I don't know if you remember back out here in L.A. when I was growing up in high school, I used to listen to the Mighty Metal Hour, KMET.
Well, I'm an East Coast guy, so I don't know that.
Did you ever hear about it? Yeah, but they used to, on Friday nights, they would play like an hour of the music. And so now, on Friday nights, I go and I listen to your Q104.3. I'll even be at dinner with like my wife and my daughter, and I'll be like, man, I got to get home by 8. and then by the end of the show, I've got like 3 guitars out. I've been listening to 3 hours of your stuff, but it just really, brings back so many great memories. And man, it's great that you're, doing all this.
Well, that's cool. That's a funny parallel too, because that show that you're talking about, which is my terrestrial show, which is syndicated. Unfortunately, I can't get a station in LA to run it, but it's cool that you're able to go to the app and listen to it. And it starts early there. It starts 8 o'clock out there.
Yeah. I got to get the Sirius too, because through the years, like when I met you over at Jake's show, I always heard that you would mention me or say something nice to me about me on the radio, and where I get my guitars worked on, it's Eric's Guitar Shop. They always listen to you. They're faithful listeners, so these guys would always keep me in the loop and stuff. But I should probably get the Sirius radio too.
Well, shout out to Eric's Guitar Shop. That's very cool. And yeah, I mean, listen, man, it's funny though. You talk about that old metal show that you listened to in L.A.
Yeah,
and I was doing my show, started in '83 on Friday nights, the same thing. So there was a few of us out there doing it for a really long time, and I'm still happy to do that one, and I'm happy to do this one. But I'll tell you, nothing gets me. The whole reason I started all of this stuff when I was a kid, right out of high school, was to be able to take music that I loved, that I was really amped up about, and have a way to share it with other people. Yeah. So getting into radio is the really reason I did that. And then I found out the dirty little secret a few years later that most radio DJs don't control what they play. Yeah. And I was like, well, then radio's not for me. So I kind of was able to successfully carve that out. So when I get something like your band and it just knocks me out, I can say, you guys got to hear this. And then the coolest thing that happens, Joe, is when you share it with your audience and they say, hell yeah, that was awesome. Yeah. Tell me about it. So our story is interesting because unlike 99% of the people I talk to all the time, I don't know you that well. Yeah. But I saw you play with Ozzy a bunch of times, and I always said positive things because I was blown away by your playing with Ozzy live. And I've always looked at you as kind of like the forgotten guy because you didn't do a studio record with him. And then you kind of went off the radar a little bit. So I guess, starting back in those days, talk about your earliest history for people that don't know your work, being on the LA scene.
Well, yeah, I started, man, I had a band called Tariff in the early days, getting out of high school. That it was a great band. There was a couple of versions of it, but the first one was really good. And then from playing around LA, and also in that time, I got to play with Lizzie Borden. I did a record, Visualize, with Lizzie Borden. And from playing around L.A., like Greg Bissonette from David Lee Roth's band heard about me, and I got to go audition for Dave. And the scene back then was really good. A lot of great players, and like Warren, from Rat, when I saw him at the show at Jake's show, there's a lot of great bands playing out back then, and I ended up getting to do the David Lee Roth tour, and then I went back to my Tariff band, and then Mike Inez and who I knew, and Dean Castronova, they called me and asked me about the Ozzy gig, and I got to go down and I auditioned. I played like 3 songs, and Ozzy shook my hand and said, "Welcome aboard." And next thing you know, I was learning a whole bunch of songs and shooting out to South America.
Well, let's backpedal a second. Is it true? Someone had told me this that you actually took lessons from Randy Rhoads? Is that true?
Yeah. When I was 16, it's weird. This guy popped into my life for a couple weeks, and just long enough to take me to a Quiet Riot show. He was taking lessons from Randy, and then I never heard from him again after that. And I got to go to down to Musonia, and I remember even the first time I was at Musonia, Randy was teaching someone else in there, and man, it was so intimidating. I wanted to leave. I mean, that huge sound coming out of this from a little practice amp out of his room, and I was sitting in there in the waiting room with my sister, and it blew me away. So I was so fortunate and lucky to have got to meet and take from Randy, and he was a perfect guy for me growing up. People idolize people. He was a perfect guy to look up to. That just was just an amazing person and just such a great player, and really, put it in ways that made it really easy for me to understand. So, when you left that lesson, you knew what you had to be working on, and I didn't get to take him that long because he got the Ozzy gig, and I remember even the last lesson I had with him. He was leaving the next day, and I was helping him carry out like his pedal board, the big long pedal board, and some of the anvils that he was going back to England or whatever. So it was just a really great time in my life.
So how many lessons, Joe, would you say you had with him?
I probably took him for like 3 months worth of lessons, and then he.
Oh, wow.
Then he went and did the Ozzy records, and then he came back, and I got to take it for like 2 more weeks worth of lessons from him. So how accomplished of a player were you before you even took lessons from Randy Rhoads? Well, I'd been playing for a while, and it's great because Michael Schenker also was a really huge influence on me. Back in high school, that Strangers in the Night record,
the best.
I mean, that's all I used to. It was that, and I locked myself in the room for like 2 days learning Rock Bottom Live. That solo, it was incredible. So, I was. He really put me on the right track, though. Like my alternate picking and my vibrato. Like when I auditioned for Ozzy, I didn't tell him that I took lessons from Randy, but he said that he could see that influence in my technique and stuff. So.
And did the band that you had, Terrapin, did you ever put out records with them?
No, we never did, and we should have, but it just couldn't keep that band. The first lineup, the really good lineup of it, we couldn't keep it together. He had just different guys in there with different personalities, but it was really that band. It was a really great band.
Did you have success locally in the LA circuit?
Yeah,
were you doing good with shows?
Yeah, we would play like the Country Club and the Roxy. We used to play the Roxy a lot, and we'd have big crowds. Really, we were doing pretty good.
Now, let me ask you about going and playing with David Lee Roth, because obviously you came into that under tough circumstances with Jason Becker.
Yeah.
Did you know Jason?
No, but when I did audition for him, he was in there playing.
Oh, really?
And what a great player! Yeah, he was playing, and he was like sitting up against the drum riser. So
he knew that. So it had gotten to the point where he did the record and that he was at least kind of noodling around, doing like a rehearsal.
Yeah, because I didn't even know. I didn't know. Another funny thing is that I was standing out. There was a long line of guitar players at Dave's house, And he did the auditions in the basement where Van Halen, all them back in Pasadena.
So it was like a cattle call audition. Literally, people lined up.
Well, I mean, it was a lot of. There was a few guys out there. It was cattle call, but yeah, they had a bunch of guys. And
do you remember who else? Anybody of note?
No, but there was maybe 10 guys in line out there, and I had my Marshall heads that I had worked on were done by Jose, and that used to work on like Eddie's stuff, and Dave came walking out, and in the crowd he came walking up to me and he goes, "Hey, what's your name?" And I said, I'm Joe, and he goes, and I said, "Yeah, man, I got that Van Halen sound through these, the heads. I still use them. I've been using the same equipment since like probably 19 years old. Yeah, wow. Around then. But and then he goes, "Okay, I'll see you in there." And I got in there and did a few songs, and I did Panama, and then I think I did Yankee Rose, and then he said, "Can you play Gigolo?" So I played like half a Gigolo, and then he stopped it and said, "Yep, I heard enough." And then later on, I heard that they cut the line off after me, and went and had like Mexican food or something. And so, but then that was a great experience because man, I had to learn so many songs with, and I was brought up on I loved Eddie and Van Halen, but I was really brought up on the Michael Schenker and the Randy stuff, and so it was such a great experience getting to go in there and play all that stuff. Like Gigolo, I almost wanted to throw the guitar out the window just trying to learn all the jazz chords and stuff. When I had to learn that song, it was like, but it was so worth it after you learned it. And
sure, and you're coming into that band after the success with Steve Vai, so you got to do all his stuff too.
Yeah, you had to learn so much. So it was a great experience.
I mean, you gotta be some sort of player to walk into that situation. And okay, you got to play Steve Vai, you got to play Eddie Van Halen. I mean,
yeah.
and then you got to play stuff that Jason Becker just did on this new record.
Yeah,
that's heavy duty, and that's interesting though that Jason was there. I just recently read an interview, and for people that don't know, Jason Becker's story is unbelievable and very tragic in a lot of ways, but also I find very inspiring because there's a documentary everybody should check out called "Not Dead Yet." I don't know if you've seen it, Joe.
No, I haven't seen it.
It's remarkable, and it tells his story. And Jason battles ALS, and he, by all accounts, I mean, he was given a year to live 20 years ago. And the people around him that take care of him and care for him, and the fact that he's still able to make music through a computer with his eyes, it's really remarkable. And it's very, very inspiring, not only to see how he's persevered, but the people around him and how supportive they've been of him. But that's interesting because I read an interview recently where he said he knew he was sick and he knew he had something wrong with him, and he was just he knew he wasn't going to get to go out live. So I guess he was kind of just waiting in the wings and seeing the parade of people coming in and who was going to get the gig. Yeah,
and I mean, really great player. I remember going in there and, he was really great player.
So he was actually playing before you would take the guitar and play?
We're both together.
Oh, he played in the auditions.
Yeah, he was playing because when I first got in there too, Dave wanted to try two guitars at first. Probably because of the record, because I think Steve Hunter too. I don't know if he played on it, but he wrote some of the songs on that record. But so, anyways, they had this guy Desi playing guitar too, and he actually did I think like a handful of shows in Europe with us, and then I think Dave just decided he wanted the one guitar in there, so.
So how long were you and David Lee Roth band?
I toured Europe with them, and then we toured, maybe 3 months in the States with Extreme and Cinderella. Did you go to any of those?
I probably did. I'm pretty sure I did. I mean, it's all a blur, man.
Yeah, I'm surprised you and me never met. At even the Ozzy shows. I can't believe that.
I know, it is strange. I don't know how that happened either, but we just met recently at Jake's show at the Whiskey, but
and you've almost been like another member of the band because, I've been like, I'll get done in the studio and I'll run off a CD and I'll be like, bam, next morning I'm at the post office mailing it out to you.
I know, because I'm so old school. I still love my CDs, but
yeah, and even the mastering. We were trying to go for really non-compressed masters, which we still did. But when you were telling me bump it a little bit, and so then I'd go back to the drawing board with the studio guy, and we were just, man, we'd do it for like 2 days. We'd be mastering this stuff, and then
I hope I didn't make you crazy, Joe.
No, you know what? It's been such a great learning experience, and it's great because we recorded all this on 2-inch. We'll use the Pro Tools to edit it, but it's all been recorded on the 2-inch, and so it's really been it's like even this next, I'm ready to start recording more stuff to keep sending you. Like I really, because we're checking out players right now, and which I would love to them to be on the next recordings, but I don't want to have too much time in between, so I want to, because we've really got it down right now. Like, and Robbie, the singer, is amazing.
Well, I want to talk about FARMIKOS in detail, and we're going to get there, but I'm going chronologically.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm going chronologically here. So just to finish up on Roth.
Uh-huh.
Well, I mean, you hear so many amazing stories about Roth. What was your experience working with him? Did you have a lot of interaction with him off stage?
Yeah, and man, so smart. Like, he really introduced me to a lot of blues stuff. Like, sometimes he'd tell me, like, by ZZ Top, learn Blue Jean Blues, and I would go, and we do it at like at a sound check. Even a Clint Black song one time I had to learn. So it's just like just really opened my eyes to a lot of different music. He's a really smart guy. Really was a great experience.
So who else was in that band with you live? I don't remember. Was it Greg Bissonette?
Yeah, Greg Bissonette, Brett Tuggle, Todd Jensen. Yeah.
Todd Jensen played bass?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I'm sure I was probably at one of those shows, but I don't recall. So, okay, so that ends.
Yeah.
And then, is there talk of you doing a record with Roth? Or?
Okay, yeah, we got. This is funny too, because we got to the end of the tour, and I'd been working on riffs, and you know the song "Fragile," that you gotta get that song.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was one of the riffs I wanted to show them, but I got to the end, and then they handed me a cassette of like some blues songs, 5 blues songs or something that they were going to go in the studio with, and by that, and I had like a bunch of heavier riffs that I wanted to at least, introduce to them, but they never heard them. So anyway, that it kind of fell apart after that,
So you guys go your own ways, and it was what it was. But it was a good experience overall?
Yeah, it was a great experience. I've been lucky, man. Those 2 gigs, that and the Ozzy ones, for me were just really, for a guitar player, just so much fun. So
tell me about Ozzy, because I did see you, and that's kind of where you first really came on my radar. I'm sure I saw you with Roth, but the time I recall specifically seeing you, and I don't know what year it was, but you played in New Jersey at what's now called the PNC Bank Arts Center. It used to be the Garden State Arts Center.
Yeah.
And I remember going there, and I know that Zach had left or whatever, and then it was kind of like, who is this guy playing guitar? And I remember I was sitting on your side of the stage. I think you're just wearing jeans with no shirt, and you were just ripping. And I'm like, who is this guy? And then finally, of course, I found out and everything. Tell me about getting the Ozzy gig and how that all came down for you.
Well, yeah, like I said, Mike Inez and Dean Castronova.
Dean was in the band then?
Yeah, he was in the band, and he actually came down. He called me and came down to a rehearsal. I was rehearsing with a band called Dogma in North Hollywood, and he came down, and which was a completely different style of music. He came down and saw that, and then a couple nights later, he came down with Sharon, and then maybe like a couple nights after that, Ozzy came down, and that was it. And then I think like a week later, I went down to, I think it was Audible. There was a rehearsal studio, and I got to, I think I did I Don't Know, Bark at the Moon, and Crowley, and maybe Crazy Train, like those, and Ozzy was like singing 5 feet from me, and I do a solo, and he was standing right there, and I finished it, and a lot of the people from the office were there, and he came over after a little bit and shook my hand, said, "Welcome aboard." Next thing you know, I was at a gun range shooting guns with him.
Wow. What year? Yeah. What year was that? 95?
Yeah, that was 95.
Now, did you know Zach, and did you know this was coming down?
Let's even go back before that. I auditioned, I think, when Zach auditioned a couple of years before that. and then Zach got the gig.
Right. So did you know? I mean, because you said they were just kind of showing up. Did you know they were actively kind of scouting you at that point?
Yeah.
You did.
Yeah, because I knew they were looking. They were, I think looking for a little bit at that point.
And you came in for the first thing you did was the Osmosis tour, right?
Yep.
Okay, so now you're coming into another situation. You have to play Randy, Tony Iommi, Jakey Lee, and Zakk Wylde.
Yeah, I had 3 weeks to learn the songs, and then we went in and we rehearsed for a couple weeks, and bam, we were off. We did one show, a production show, in Texas, and then we were off to South America. So, I mean, those first South American shows, I was even still, working the songs out, learning them.
And Dean Castronova who's now in Journey, he was the drummer?
Yeah, he was the drummer, him and Geezer, and then, I don't know, maybe a handful of shows, and then Ozzy got Randy in there.
Randy Castillo?
Yep, Randy Castillo.
Okay, and then didn't Robert Trujillo come in?
Man, there's so many.
Did you play with Robert in Ozzy's band?
Oh yeah. Robert. After Geezer left, Mike Inez came in and played for a couple. He was doing Alice in Chains, but he came in and did a couple tours with us, maybe 6 months worth of shows, and then we auditioned. I think in '96 or '97 we auditioned a bunch of bass players, and Robert came in and got the gig.
So how many years, Joe, total were you in Ozzy's band?
From 95 to 2000, 2001.
Wow, it was that long, huh?
Yeah.
That's amazing, man.
Yeah.
I didn't really realize that it was that long. So you played with so many different people.
Yeah, and I love that lineup. That lineup with Robert and Mike Borden, it was a really... Did you see that lineup?
Yeah, I know I did. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I remember when Mike Borden came in there, and that was killer as well.
Yeah. So it was a really great band.
So I know you didn't make a studio record with Ozzy, but you have a few co-writes, right?
Yeah. So there's, people say about that, there's a song out on the Beavis and Butthead, but I mean, I don't even know how much of it is of me on there. It was another song. I didn't write it or anything, but I did some bending of some chords, but that's about it with that. But then at the end of, 2000, the record before me, too, I think they had a lot of... My experience with Ozzy was mostly touring, because the writing thing for that record, there was a bunch of people putting their bids in for that. I mean, me and Robert got to get 3 songs on that record, so, which was really cool. And Zach did it, and Zach, I mean, I love what he did on it, the way he played it. So,
right.
Songs, but so that was basically my experience with the whole writing thing. But
are there any even live albums, official live records or anything with you on them?
There's that Perry Mason. There's a Perry Mason live song that I think it was shot at San Bernardino. That one is, and that's no overdubs or nothing. It's just a live recording from the show. So,
but there's no official live album or no EP. That's amazing that you could have been in Ozzy's band for 5-6 years, and there's really no documentation of it, which is why I think you're so criminally overlooked in the role of Ozzy players.
Yeah,
I mean that's a long time to be in a band and not have a studio record, even a live record from.
Yeah.
Why do you think that was? Was just the timing?
Yeah, just at that point, that's just what happened, the way it went down. I mean, I feel, we had a bunch of good riffs, good licks and stuff, but, there was a lot of different people writing for those records. The one before me and the one that I was, when I was trying to, put my bid in for that, there was a whole bunch of different writers on that.
Well,
it all works out, it's all good, and Ozzy had a great relationship with Zach, so I had no problem with that. Even when we played San Bernardino, I'd be playing, and which Zach was just really great with. I'd met him before that, but he was a really great guy, and made me feel real welcome, because here I'm up there playing I'm up there playing Mama, I'm Coming Home or No More Tears, and he's on the side of the stage,
That had to be a little weird.
I would look over, and I saw him, and like Dime would be over there, Dimebag, but Zach was, so I had no problem with it, with him going and, coming back and doing finishing doing that record and playing with Ozzy. So,
which record was that? That was Down to Earth.
Oh gosh,
the timeline screws me up sometimes.
Yeah, I don't even know what the name of the record was.
Well, regardless, maybe Osmosis.
No, because I came in on the Osmosis record.
Okay, so it's probably Down to Earth then.
Yeah, it was the one after that.
So your experience with Ozzy, I've had Jake as a friend, and I had Jake in here just recently, as a matter of fact. Being very honest about being kind of rooked out of money and songwriting credit. I had the same experience having Bob Daisley in here, who was a huge part of Ozzy's career as a writer and player. Very, very upset and negative about his experience, business dealings, working with Sharon, bad deals, signing bad deals, not getting paid, things like that. Your experience being in that camp sounds like it was fairly positive. Do you have any issues?
Yeah, it was very positive. I mean, see, I wasn't in the whole. My experience was more of the touring and stuff, and I mean, they always treated me really great.
So you were a guy to come play live, and you got a salary and were taken care of, and you did your thing. You never crossed into that threshold where it came down to publishing, which I guess is really where it got dicey.
Yeah, mine was basically the touring, and then just I got 3 co-writes on one of the records, and that was basically it.
And you get your money for those songs? You got your publishing?
Yeah.
Well, good for you, man. You came out the other side, all right.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
So okay.
No, I had a blast, man. My time in there was great, and everything happens for a reason. It's like the song "Am I One?" The beginning that reminds me of something that the direction that I would have wanted to go with the Ozzy type of trip.
Oh yeah.
The way I write, that's that because it sort of has that Believer Randy-ish type of feel to it.
Oh yeah.
And but it everything works out, and after all that. I ended up wanting to have, because everyone, there was rumors that I was dead, that I was a born again, which I'm not dead. I'm talking to you, and I was baptized Catholic. I'm still the same,
So let me continue the lineage here, and then we're going to get to what you're doing now. So Zach comes back. Ozzy's over. They just break the news to you that Zach's coming back. Is that pretty much what happens?
Yeah. I just at that point, after that, it just same sort of thing. Yeah, he was, because one day he was in there rehearsing with them. And he was back in there. There was different people writing at that point, so it just kind of, you didn't know what was gonna be happening, And he came back, and that was it.
Okay, so that's about 2001.
Yep.
Then what happens, because that's where I and a lot of people lost track of you before we get to this band that you're doing now. Yeah,
so then I ended up, I've always been on my guitar. I mean, Eddie, I'm always playing. Like today, I played, all day up until probably about 4 o'clock today. But so after that, I ended up, because I ended up wanting to have a kid. I ended up getting married, have a kid. I have a 10-year-old daughter. And for like 4 years, I was like, I don't want to go do anything, because I'd get, there was opportunities that came that were calls to maybe check out stuff. But and I was kind of I had been for years, even not when I wasn't touring with like Ozzy and David Lee Roth, and you're trying to do your own thing. You're always just constantly, gone and rehearsing and playing. And so I ended up having a kid, buying a house, getting married, and then like 3 or 4 years into it, my dad got really ill, and my dad was always my biggest supporter. My dad was the one, he even sold his car to buy me equipment and would take a bus to work. And he'd go to my Randy Rhoads lessons with me. He was the best. Loved Michael Schenker. He'd come see me play at clubs, and he would be like, telling me to play with more feeling, because I'd be trying to fly off, and he was the best. So anyways, he ended up getting dementia and broke both of his hips, and my sister and me were the only two that were really, really around him every day. And he passed away like 3 going on 4 years ago. So, and even when he was sick, he was asking me, about music. What are you doing? And so anyway.
So he was very supportive.
Oh yeah, and when he passed away, and then that's when he passed away, I ended up, getting like, okay, I gotta start putting some music out here. And luckily, my friend Dave from LA Sound Design knew of Robbie, and Robbie was in a band, so I didn't go after him. But then I heard he broke up with the band, and for like 6 months I started sending him.
Now, to let people know, Robbie is the singer in your current band, FARMIKOS, Robbie Locke.
Robbie Locke, and he's from Arkansas. Amazing, man, just such a great voice, soulful but ballsy and heavy. And
well, if you remember the first song you ever sent me, or the first thing you sent me, I mean, I was a fan of your playing already, so I knew how incredible your playing would be. But the first thing I said to you is, "Who is this guy? He's got some pipes."
Yeah,
because it was crazy, his voice.
Oh, he's so good, and he's been out here 3 times making the disc. He'd come out like 3 times for like 2 weeks at a time, and just really we click. We get along great. He's like a family member now. So,
so you have this idea, basically, you and him, to do this new band. What year is this then? Your dad?
This is like maybe 3 years, 2.5 years ago.
Okay, so your dad, your daughter gets a little older, and I get that, man. My daughter just turned 11 yesterday, and it's hard, especially when they're younger. You go away for a week, you come back, they're different people. It's crazy.
Yeah, and I got such a strong bond with her and stuff that she's the most important thing. So
yeah, so that's cool that you did that, and then you decide. But you're always playing the whole time.
I'm always playing. I mean, if you came over here, if you saw, that's why if you're ever in LA, you got to come over. Tons of Marshalls and guitars, and I had friends over all the time. Always playing, always around the guitar. And I mean, I'm a student of the guitar. I'll be on it for forever. Do
you have a studio at your house?
No, I have a. It's not attached to the house. It's detached. It's just a music room with a piano and a bunch of amps and guitars. It's not a studio. The studio I go to is in Pasadena, the Mouse House, and it's because he's got all the analog stuff, and he's got the Pro Tools. But whenever I come in there, they roll out the 2-inch machine, and I've been recording with him now for like 20 years. So
Joe, when you, having done 5-6 years with Ozzy, played with Roth, I imagine that you even taking that time off financially, you were able to do it. You took care of your money, you took care of your business.
Yep,
that's really smart. That's good.
I've always lived a simple life, not very simple life.
Right. So your idea is to do this band. You have this material. You find Robbie as your singer.
Yep.
And then the name FARMIKOS. A lot of people have brought that up to me. Like, what is that? They never heard of a name like that. Where does that come from?
Well, that was a song. It was the song "Scapegoat." That's what it was called at first. Which it's FARMIKOS. It's a scapegoat. So, but I didn't like the way it looked because it had the PH. So we just started, Robbie would send it over to me on the computer, and I'd just look at it, and I ended up change the letters around to FARMIKOS. So it kind of really doesn't mean anything now, but we just needed a name, and it went pretty quick, because sometimes that'll drive you nuts trying to think of a name.
Oh, yeah, and if you think about it, what does a name really mean? I mean, what is an Aerosmith? If you didn't know there was a band called Aerosmith for 42 years, and you just heard that word, you'd be like, that's the weirdest thing I ever heard.
Yeah.
Now, of course, it's synonymous. You can only hope that FARMIKOS becomes that. That's the idea. But so you basically made this record yourself and Robbie, basically, right?
Yep. It's all that's the great thing. It's just been all nobody telling us what to do or how to do it. I go in the studio and come up with a bunch of riffs, and I've been really fortunate because I got like Robert playing on it, and
Robert Trujillo.
Yeah, he's on like 7 of the songs. I've even got other stuff that that I got probably 5 more tracks too that just need to be finished, but there's I think 2 or 3 more with bass on them, and I had Brooks Wackerman playing drums. Do you know Brooks? He's in a band. He's in Bad Religion, but
I know who he is, but I don't know him personally.
Great drummer, and there was a couple other guys like Brooks couldn't play in a couple of them, and we had Ken Schock that was in a band called Candiria. They're from New York.
Sure, yep.
He's incredible, and then
I think that's really cool that Robert, who you played with in Ozzy's band, who of course now is in Metallica, would still come out and play this stuff, and still do this. I mean, he didn't, he's not like, I'm in Metallica, dude. I don't do that stuff anymore. That's really cool that he did that.
We have such a great, the way we even play off each other. We really have a great chemistry with just the way we, when I'm playing a riff, we're barely ever doubling the same thing. We do these wide interval riffs and stuff, and Robert's incredible. So
yeah, I'd love to get him on my TV show. I've got to try to reach him. If you talk to him, please tell him I'd love to have him on for an interview and to play or whatever he wants to do, because we've had Lars on, and we've had Kirk on, and I'd love to have him on. I think it'd be really cool. His story is really interesting. I've met him a few times. I don't know him well, but he's got he's a great player, obviously, and he's always been very cool.
Yeah, he's the best, and a lot of these riffs too were riffs that I've had for years too, that I've had sitting around. So,
and the way you did this, I thought was the way I first found out about it was that you did a very kind of cool grassroots sort of way to do this. Like, you started leaking little teaser videos and little teaser clips and songs. Yep. It was very smart marketing at a very sort of grassroots sort of level, giving people little tastes of this as you were making it. Talk about that decision and where that idea came from.
Well, yeah, because we don't have, we would just, we're just trying to write the best music we can and throw it out there and let it happen organically, and then if it's meant to happen, it'll happen. But it's great having someone like you behind it, man. You've been such a great advocate for us, and it's really opened even a lot of doors since you've been playing it. I mean, there was 4 labels that contacted us, and a lot of people, they all listen to you.
Well, I appreciate that, but the thing that's really important for me is the fact that, and I would say this all the time, because I hear from so many musicians, as you could imagine, that say, hey, help me out like you helped out, I don't know, the Winery Dogs, or the way you helped out FARMIKOS or whatever. It's not, to me, it's not about, and you're a prime example, because a lot of these guys I'm friends with and known forever. You and I don't know each other beyond just recently, and we only met that one time just recently. Yeah. I'm moved by one thing. I'm motivated by one thing. The music. It's been that way since day one. It's not about if you're a friend, if I know you, or what have you. It's about, is this stuff awesome, and is my audience going to love it, and do I love it? And that's, for what I do, gets me excited. So I appreciate you saying that, but the credit is to you guys for the music you made, because it checked all my boxes, man. It blew me away. And what was really cool to then, because sometimes, Joe, that happens, and then I put it on the radio and my audience doesn't really react. It's like, whatever. Yeah. When I put your songs on, as I've been doing for a while, the response is there. It's like, I get emails. Hey, when can I get this? How can I get this? Who is this guy? So we've been building to this point, and now that this record's about to come out, I'm excited for you, man, and I'm excited that people can finally get the thing.
Oh, and Eddie, when you hear this stuff, I haven't, wait till we get the band together, but just this stuff it's going to sound so incredible live. I mean, I blasted on the Marshalls over here, and it sounds like a 747. It's going to be really, it's going to be fun to play it live.
So you're looking for a drummer and a bass player? Is that what's going on for playing live?
Yeah, and it cracks me up, because I listen to your shows, and how you talk about all these guys doing a bunch of different projects, and there's been a couple guys that I like, but they're in two or three other different things, and we want this to be a band. We want it to be the same guys that, you work your butt off. I'm ready to start recording and sending you more songs.
Well, this record, the debut FARMIKOS record, is available starting this Thursday.
Yep, Thursday.
How can everybody get it, whether they want physical or digital?
Yeah, it's going to be, through CD Baby, they could get it, or Amazon. So it for the physical copies and the digital, I guess. So.
Now, did you do a record deal, or are you doing it on your own?
We're doing this one on our own. What I want to do is get the drummer and the bass player, and then get some management and let them start taking it for the next batch or whatever, even for this, whatever down the road. But if we reissued it, or I don't know. But it's you know, it's been going good, and it's spreading, and just like if people like luckily that are calling in and saying that they dig on it, hopefully they just telling a friend and hopefully it just keeps spreading, which it has been. It's been going great.
Well, that's the best marketing. That's the best marketing you can have. I mean, you can do all the tweeting and posting and hyping that you want to do, but at the end of the day, if the music's not there and it's not exciting to people, so when it spreads organically and just because people are loving what they're hearing, when it connects to rock fans, I mean, fortunately, yeah, I mean, I have a big platform that I can play it for people, but more importantly, they're liking it. So hopefully, if you can get a few other believers out there that can get the word out. Yeah. That this thing exists and this thing is kick-ass. You know, I'm excited for where it could go for you. Do you have a plan to do any live shows yet, or you obviously have to get a band first, right?
I mean, hopefully, I'm thinking in February we're going to try and do 2 videos, one for Scapegoat and Am I One, and either hopefully I'm thinking on the Scapegoat one, you know, we'll get, you know, maybe Robert and Brooks or whatever. We've been talking to them. If not, you know, if we get the guys in the band by then, we'll do 2 videos for that stuff and get those out there. And then Robbie will be back out here, and we want to get in a room with some of these guys that I've been recently talking to and just feel it out with these players and.
So you feel like you're close on finding a bass player or drummer? Or still looking?
There's a bass player that came over about 2 weeks ago that you know, he got out of his car and he brought his bass. He got out in here and he was playing, but he's in a couple other things too, which kind of, you know, is the only drag with it. Right. But I understand they have to, you know, to make money and stuff. They gotta spread their, you know.
Well, that's it. I mean, we're in the era of multitasking, and there's good and bad with that. I kind of like, you know, the guys that I love and know where I'm going to find them and make it's special when they play, you know. But I understand, too, guys got to pay the bills and hustle, but sometimes it gets too diluted, and you get these great bands that come together, and they never even get to do a live show because everybody's in 5 directions.
Yeah, no, and you know what? I mean, we've been spoiled with who's been playing on this, and it's got a certain standard. I want it to really... It's got to really, you know, be incredible. So yeah, you know, so I don't want to settle. You know, it's got to be the right guys. So we're being picky and just trying to complete this thing, which we will. It's coming. And in the meantime, like I'm ready to get, like I said, get in there and start working on some new. Like I got a bunch of other ideas. You know, well, I've got a whole bunch of ideas, but I got some other ones I want to get in there and start, you know, working on now. So you know, I could be sending you more stuff and be a contender for 2015 or 16 with your list, you know?
Well, I'm just excited that you're playing again, man. And you know, it's great having you playing guitar and doing your thing because, you know, I think it's interesting. You were that guy so close to that big sort of mainstream awareness with, you know, you had these big tours. You had the big tour with David Lee Roth, but you didn't do the record. You're in Ozzy's band for 5-6 years, but you don't do the record. And you don't get that sort of next level of exposure. So it would be really cool if when that comes for you, because you're so talented, it comes with your own thing as opposed to being somebody else's guitar player. And I really hope it happens with this band.
And I've always, you know, it's funny. I've always loved the situations I was in, but I always envied and really looked up to like the other bands that were out touring with us, that were out there doing their own trip and you know, putting their own music out there and getting to tour on their own stuff. So.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. You talk about Schenker, who I love as well, and I talked to Michael a bunch of times, and I said to him once, how come you never joined really, like you went into Scorpions, but you were only there for like one record or whatever. How come you never joined somebody else's band? You had opportunities. He was offered various gigs. Yeah. And he said something to me pretty interesting. He said, I never want to play. I just got tired. I don't want to be the guy that plays everybody else's music. Yeah. He said nothing against those guys, but he said, I only want to play stuff that I created. And he said, if I would have gone into, you know, Aerosmith or whatever, all these things that people had talked to him about, he said, I would have ended up, you're just playing somebody else's catalog mostly. And he said, I wanted to do my own thing. Yeah,
you know, and too, which is such a great feeling is, you know, I mean, because I'll listen to the radio, the Q104, but then it's even a bonus when I hear you play one of our songs. It's just like, oh my God, such a great great feeling and makes it really worth even doing it yourself. And because it costs, like the studio that we're at, doing it on a 2-inch, it's not cheap, but I it's the only way I would do it.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, man. Right. Well, yeah, it's good stuff, and I appreciate you listening to that show. That show is more straight music, where this show that you're doing right now, this is more of a talk and a hang thing. So it's the best of all worlds, the podcast and all that. I appreciate you, listening to what I do. And
you got me even listening. I mean, I went out and bought King. I went out and bought Rival Sons, Maestro. You got me. I mean, you got me fired up over here.
Well, I'm glad, man, because like I said, I'm just glad you're playing again, and you're making great music. So I'm going to let you go, man, and I really appreciate the time, and I want to remind everybody to go out and get the debut album from FARMIKOS, Amazon, CD Baby, and crank it up. You guys are going to love it. It's so killer.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Eddie. All
right, hey, Joe, before I let you go, I have about 6 minutes before they end this show to the second. So why don't I got just enough time to cram in Scapegoat. So how about I do that?
That's great.
All right, man. Listen, I'll talk to you soon, and good luck with everything. Keep me posted.
Okay. Thank you, Eddie.
All right, man. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye. Thanks.
There he goes, Joe Holmes. And here he is in action with FARMIKOS. Man, that is so killer. FARMIKOS is the name of the band. Joe Holmes, the guitarist. We thank Joe for his time. Again, you can get that CD starting this Thursday at Amazon and cdbaby.com. Killer stuff. Thanks to Frank Hannon of Tesla. Thanks to Stephen Piercy. See you guys again next Monday live at 6 Eastern, 3 Pacific for another Eddie Trunk Live on Trunk Nation. Hit me on Twitter at Eddie Trunk. Visit my website, eddietrunk.com. See you in Cincinnati and Wisconsin this weekend.